Hey, what's going on, guys? Xbox All In channel. A very special, rare Sunday edition of the show. We're going to do an All In podcast. A couple things we wanted to talk about. It's just been a crazy week in pop culture. A lot of stuff popping off. Don't know if I'm going to be able to get to all of it. Also, set out the bat signal to the crew, see if anybody could join. I know some of the guys wanted to talk about some of the stuff that I've highlighted in the title description. For me personally, I want to talk about Hulkamania. A couple of the guys wanted to talk about the Superman movie. I'm going to touch a little bit on Marvel and their supposed success with the Fantastic Four. We'll see how that turns out. By all accounts, though, I've seen a lot of great reviews on the movie. A couple of people that I actually follow closely, um, not necessarily gave it a thumbs up, but it was a better movie than they thought that it was. For me personally, on my side, guys, I've kind of moved on. I've moved on when it comes to Marvel, especially their cinematic universe. Um, like I've said on my channel before, for me, the pinnacle of their greatness was phases one, two, and three. Um, some standouts apart from that is probably Guardians of the Galaxy, which is pretty good, the last one. Which is ironic, right? Because that was James Gunn's last film with Marvel. It definitely left his fingerprint. It's definitely a successful franchise for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. To me, it's where James Gunn fits the most when it comes to characters that he likes to do movies about. Because it's in his wheelhouse, guys. And then having those type of characters that are unknown, like I told you guys a million times on this channel. Even for me as a comic book guy back in the day, I didn't know anybody that read Guardians of the Galaxy. Most of my friends were hardcore like I was. They never touched the Guardians of the Galaxy comic book, had no idea who they were. The only time they would know about Guardians of the Galaxy is when they would cross over with like the Avengers or another popular Marvel title at the time. And I just always liked the characters because they were quirky and they were different. And I like Cosmic Marvel, especially Cosmic Marvel from the mid 60s to all throughout the 70s. Right. And so that's why Guardians of the Galaxy works for James Gunn. I mean, it's a throwback, definitely. And he allows his humor and his writing to run rampant. And another thing about it is he set a tone for Cosmic Marvel, for Guardians of the Galaxy, that Marvel Cinematic Universe, um, with the way he created it. Because it was untouched, to be honest with you. Unless you're super hardcore, like me from back in the day, who read those comic books and explored. A lot of people love the Jim Starlin version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe or Marvel Cosmic Universe, and so do I. Right, I grew up a huge fan of Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, and so there's a lot of stuff that James Gunn did with Guardians of the Galaxy, the cosmic appeal of Marvel Comics that he was able to put into his movies, and he did a great job with that. So again, it kind of shocked me because when I look at him as a writer and as a director, I do put him in a certain category, right? And when he got picked to be the head of DC, I thought what they were going to do was, like I said in my previous video, is he was going to be more of like a Kevin Feige overseeing everything, and then he just puts his stamp on characters that I think fit his style of writing and the way he likes to showcase his abilities as a director, right? And as a writer, him and his brother. I mean, again, I love Guardians of the Galaxies 1, 2, and 3. Um, And so for me, he would have done kind of the characters in the DC universe, trying to round them out, right? And then he picks the right people to do the more important titles, their big guns, right? Like the Supermans and the Batmans and stuff like that. Definitely did not pick him to do Superman. And from all intent and purposes, what I hear about the movie, you guys know I haven't watched it. I haven't gone to a movie in forever. Kids are older now. Probably won't go to see it. Maybe when it comes on digital, I'll probably check it out. Oh, I don't know if I'll do that either because Marvel closed or Xbox closed their movies and TVs division. Uh, yeah, I looked at. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but a lot of the stuff I was doing when it came to watching movies and television shows and stuff like that, I was transitioning to the Xbox app, like 100%. Like I wasn't buying anything on Voodoo. If I bought anything offline or outside of the ecosystem of Xbox, it was like there had to be movies anywhere, and I was doing that with the Xbox app as well. But that movies and TVs thing, man, that threw me off. Right, so I don't know when I'm gonna get a chance to watch these shows. Probably when they pop up on one of the streaming services. Don't buy physical anymore. Like I told you guys, one of the problems I have, I would love to buy physical. Don't like ordering from Amazon. Um, if I buy physical, I'm old school, so I like to go to the store. I like to look at it, feel it, touch it, pick the one that I want, man. Because sometimes, again, dude, as a collector, when I order stuff on Amazon, the stuff will come damaged, And by damaged, I mean it doesn't have to be like ripped or anything like that. Though I got a Funko Pop like that one time, which made me stop completely ordering Funko online from Amazon. Um, but I did get, I mean, I'm talking about like if I buy something that's physical, dude, I don't want it bent, I don't want it chipped, dude, I want it mint in box. So it is what it is, man. I'm probably transitioning away. This part of pop culture for me is probably going to go away because if like I tell you guys where I live, dude, the physical aspect is getting harder and harder to do. And I'm not just talking about the pop culture stuff. I just mean physical in general. Right? Like when I go to the store, shopping for clothes, even sometimes getting food. I had to. The reason I'm doing the podcast today, dude, I got a flat tire on Friday night. Got off early from work, which was nice. Um, our command was like, okay, good job this week because we had a busy week. And then they were like, you guys can take the 59-minute roll, we call it, right? So we were allowed to go. And luckily, too, but the traffic was bad for some reason. I don't know what was going on Friday afternoon. Maybe it's because we just got way too many tourists there on the islands. But it was crazy when I was driving home. Heard this thumping going on, and I knew already it was my tire. Made it to the house, dude, and good thing because when I made it home, that thing was just it was almost to the rim, right? So I had to change my tire, dude. And one of the things that I kind of figured would be a problem was getting the tires replaced. Now, by problem, I mean having a problem with it because of availability and then price, right? And then getting somebody to do it. And so Sam's is an option. Tried Sam's. They were booked till like August 5th was the earliest appointment. That ain't gonna work. Ended up contacting my dealership, and I knew that's what I'm gonna have to do was go to the dealership. And took my car over there on Saturday. I was there pretty much all day because they were packed. They kind of squeezed me in, and I was thankful for that because I can't drive my car, dude. I couldn't drive my car at all. I put my spare on, dude, and even the spare was low on air. And then found out the other two tires were bad as well. And one of the tires, I'll say this, one of the tires, when I changed the tire that I had, I saw the other tire on the right side. And I saw that the threading was coming off too, right? So I knew I had to do two tires. What's ended up going to happen, here's the bottom line, guys. I'm going to do three tires. I'm going to have to do three tires. But it took all day, man, because there's only one option that I had. I could not go to any other place. There's a discount tire store kind of far, not far, but a couple miles from where I'm at. And I had never been there before. I might stop by there now. But the bottom line is I think the tire changed. And I'm glad I took it to the dealership because it wasn't too bad. The price was more expensive. I think the discount I would have got it for like per tire would have been $120. I ended up paying like $175 for each tire from two tires. And then, of course, the labor is the killer rate, which is fine. But the kind of cool thing about going to the dealership, though, is that they do, they have your whole car history there. So if there's any problems, they do have warranties on their stuff. But it has to be something that's outside of the norm, not over wear and tear. So they don't guarantee for that. But still, at the end of the day, dude, I like the dealership I go to, man. That's why I've stuck with them for a long time. But I basically spent all day Saturday doing that. And then at the end of that, dude, I was hungry. I went and got something to eat. And then I came back home. Dude, I just basically called it a day because I was tired. Right? I'm old man, guys. I'm not young as I used to be. If you're young, dude, appreciate your body. Because when I was changing the tire, I mean, it's not, I've changed tires, I don't know how many times, but dude, when you have knee and back problems, man, you gotta it takes longer. I'm just gonna put it to you that way. Right. And then it was funny because when I was trying to do the bolt, I didn't know this about my bolt because my neighbor saw me doing it. And he goes, "Hey, let me bring over my drill and we can just unscrew the bolt." So I was just gonna, wheel it off. And then he come over and he was trying to do it, dude, and this thing got stuck on the bolt. And then the other neighbor was there, and he's like, "Oh, you know what it is, dude? It's the way the bolts are on the car, because when he puts his drill, it's the torque device, right? He puts it on there, but he was covering the whole bolt, so he was on the base, and it was causing it to stick. Anyway, there was all kind of stuff that went on Friday. Something that normally takes like 20 minutes, nowadays takes me half an hour, and then with all these issues we were having, And hey, look, thank God for my neighbors. Very nice. Really appreciate it. And then I learned something, dude. I learned that if I get a device like they have, instead of just using the tire iron, right, to loosen up the bolts, that's what I always do. Um, I have to make sure that I don't cover the whole bolt. Does that make sense? Anyway, it was an experience on Friday, then Saturday, my whole day because I was trying because I went to Sam's Club to see if I could do it. I didn't have any openings, and they didn't even have the tire. Getting back to my point, they didn't even have the tire that I needed. Right, and so that's case in point, dude. It's just like if I want to go to buy something nowadays, if I want to buy it physically and I want to go to the store and buy it, dude, it's hard. Right, I told you guys the trouble I have with the Sega games. Right, I go to GameStop, dude, and last year even this year, like when Sega's games have been coming out, at least here it's been kind of popular. So even the Xbox ones sell out. So what they try and do is they try and push you to pre-order, right? And I don't want to pre-order. I was like, look, dude, I just want to come here, expect the game to be there. And the reason why it bothers me is because where I live, dude, Xbox is not the popular brand, right? So for me to go in to get and some of these games are not the most popular games. There might be a buzz around the game, and then of course people's buying habits. So it's just telling me that they just don't want to order, right? They probably get a bulk order come in and they distribute it to all the stores where I live on the island, right? And then some stores end up with maybe one or two copies that somebody can come in and buy. So of course you're gonna run into. But I miss those days when used to go in, used to have like about 20, 25 copies. And I know why they're doing that, dude, because they want that day one sale price, man. But if you have back stock and stuff like that, it ends up sitting on the inventory, then it gets discounted and all this kind of stuff, right? With everybody going to digital, with people not having money to even buy that, it's been harder, especially where I live. Everything's harder where I live when it comes to availability, right? So I was running around trying to find out um, not only that I need to get my tire changed, but that they had the tires that fit my car in stock. That's number one, and then number two, if they had availability for appointment. And at the end of the day, it was the dealership that had the best option. And the great thing about it is the tires themselves were not that expensive. I think they're like $30-$40 more um, than what I could have got at the discount. But even if I went to the discount place, there's no guarantee I could have got an appointment or that they had those tires in stock. Right. What I need to do, right, is after I get all of this done, then I'll go out and I'll look. And I'll also listen to the dealership. Is when I have my last. We have this stuff called safety checks here. Man. They check your car, make sure it's drivable, and then you got to pay and get a license. Or you have to get a sticker or a tag that says, "Yeah, I got my car checked." And then the dealership, they were telling me, "Hey, you need to get these tires changed," and I didn't. It's not that I didn't want to do it; I just didn't have the time because I was already there for the safety check and the servicing and stuff like that. That took several hours, and I just never went back. So that's on me. That is on me. But long story short, this is why we're doing the podcast today, because it's been a busy weekend, dude. And like I said, man, I learned one thing about getting older, and this kind of factors in because we'll jump into the Hulkamania stuff real quick. Dude. And by Hulkamania, man, we're going to discuss Hulk Hogan. You guys know he passed away, and it's kind of unique for me and people of my generation what Hulk actually means. And when I've been online and looking at everything, it's been beautiful. I'll be honest with you. There's people out there talking stuff about Hulk Hogan. Don't care, right? If people want to complain about it, they can complain about it. I don't think it's as bad as you know. I think I know a lot of people had issues with Hulk Hogan, but for the most part, man, I think it's been a beautiful experience. A lot of good tributes across the board. It's nice to see that he's getting his flowers, dude. He's getting his recognition because without him, there'd be no wrestling. It's gonna be straight up. And I've watched wrestling for a long time, dude, even before WWF kicked off the way that it did. And that's what I think people of my generation have a unique perspective on this because we do. Hold on, let me end this, guys. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure my thing is streaming. Guys of my generation have a unique perspective because we got to see the beginnings of what modern wrestling is today. We were there from the ground floor. We got to see it built from the ground up, and the reason why it matters so much is because before that, dude, you had to be a wrestling fan to like wrestling. And the only reason I got into wrestling, dude, is I was a little kid, and as a person born in the '70s, And a lot of you guys don't know this because we have phones. You have multiple options to watch the content you want to watch nowadays. When I was growing up, there's only one option. That was a TV in the living room, and that TV had only three channels. Right? So, um, and then local affiliates, which was one channel. And so, my dad and my grandfather were big wrestling fans, right? I'm sure, and they were also wrestling fans. And they like all sports, man. I grew up watching Wild World of Sports. Dude, that's how I know who Muhammad. Watching Sugar Ray Leonard, Box, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Like that was of that generation, right? So, and again, that was on TV, dude, and you didn't change the channel. You change the channel, and you get your butt whooped. But yeah, you just watch what your parents watch. That's why the news was a big thing. Maybe once in a while you get to watch some cartoons, right? Which is very rare, at least in my household. But one thing we did get to watch was wrestling. Right? And then I remember my grandfather, he actually would go to the wrestling matches, the local ones. So here in Hawaii, where I live, right, they had a local wrestling scene. And then eventually, when I was living in Florida, growing up over there, like you had that southern wrestling, right? What they call that chitlin circuit that these guys used to do. But wrestling was very regional at the time. And then if you're a wrestling fan, you kind of knew of other wrestlers outside of your region. Um, but it wasn't like on the level of what they'll be, definitely nowhere close to what wrestling is now. But even when in the '80s when wrestling blew up, I'm talking about wrestling pre Hulk Hogan, right? Pre Hulkamania, pre Rocket Wrestling, all that stuff, dude. It's you know what it's similar to like the NBA, how the NBA kind of took off once Michael Jordan came in there. In fact, shout out to Hebot, the world's most popular gamer. He did a good. He did the best tweet I've seen on X. Actually, he said Hulk Hogan was the Michael Jordan for wrestling, for professional wrestling, for sports entertainment. But yeah, that's my exposure to it, dude. So I remember seeing a lot of the guys that was in the ring. Of course, being Hawaii, and of course knowing a lot of the stuff coming out of Japan at the time. But again, I was a young kid, dude, and this is more what my parents or my dad then watched, and then I just kind of glommed into it. That's how I know a lot of the music I know is because of my dad and my uncles because of the music they listened to. Right, it was a constant thing, right? And so that's my exposure to wrestling from the jump, right? Even pre Hulk Hogan, right? And then of course Hulk Hogan was, he hit way before Hulkamania and stuff like that. He was out there, like a lot of other people too. But it was the regional stuff does matter, guys. That's why sometimes when you hear people talk about wrestlers, you can kind of tell where they're from, or especially you can kind of tell their age. You can kind of tell where they're from, the type of wrestling they grew up with, what they watched, right? But again, one of the things that makes it specific for guys like myself and a lot of the guys in the group is because we grew up in a generation that kind of defined what wrestling is. So for me, seeing all the stuff that's going on with Hulk Hogan right now, it's kind of beautiful, and it's a trip down memory lane. It's bittersweet, right? Because he died, and he died of cardiac arrest. So you know, it's unfortunate that they weren't able to get him to the hospital. Um, that they weren't able to save him, and so we lost a legend. And now the kind of silver lining in the dark cloud of all of this is I am enjoying the walk down memory lane. Of course, nostalgia is always great and stuff like that. But a lot of times, man, as a fan, especially a fan of somebody as big as Hulk Hogan, you forget the impact that he had on wrestling. And you forget the impact that he had just on the generations of people that grew up um, with him, not just as a wrestler, but as an actor, and then the different directions that he went with his career. And it's all coming back now, right? I've been spending a lot of time. If you guys follow me on X, man, I mean, I know a lot of people are probably like, this dude is psychotic, because all I've been sharing is Hulk Hogan stuff, right? And I'm not gonna lie, every once in a while, man, throughout the years, just like anything else I do, man. You guys know we're into gaming and comic books and stuff like that. Like for example, Jim Shooter passed away, and he is the editor in chief of Marvel for the longest time, and I kind of cut my teeth on a lot of the stuff that he editorized on at Marvel when I was collecting comic books for Marvel. Right, so he had a big stamp on that generation that people grew up in, right? And he has there's some stuff that people talked about that they felt was bad. You know, People have their opinions and stuff like that, but his influence was huge, right? And so I constantly go back and revisit either old comics or old clippings and stuff like that. And then YouTube, you can go back on YouTube and relive a lot of this stuff. In the case of Hulk Hogan, man, some of my favorite wrestling matches. I mean, a lot of people are showing the Andre thing. That was huge, dude. That kind of established WrestleMania. That whole story arc, dude. And that was what that was for like at least two WrestleManias, right? I remember that was like when they did a story arc like that. And granted, not every Hulk Hogan was the main focus, so of course the story arc could run a little bit longer, be a little bit deeper. But I remember, dude, when that event happened, dude, that was huge, man. When he body slammed Andre. Now you see guys like Goldberg, you got guys like Brock Lesnar, dude. Of course, everybody understands what wrestling is, right? It's entertainment at the end of the day. As a hardcore fan, I mean, we knew that from the jump. That was like the big secret, right? It's like, wrestling's fake. We used to have that narrative that was out there. Same thing with like, video games are for kids. Why are you playing video games, right? It's those type of narratives that we had back in the day. And so I remember watching uh, the build up to the Andre versus Hulk Hogan thing. Nah, it's just so 70s, so 80s. Dude, the art of telling the story, the art of building the fiction, right? The art of creating the belief and disbelief of everything that was around wrestling at the time, and then it just culminates into that one big event and the payoff that it was, right? And everybody was into it, man. I remember we were talking about it the next day. It was crazy. It was crazy. And one of the great things about that is it kind of, because Andre was a bigger than life character too, just because you didn't see people of that size, right? Now we live in a world where we're 24/7, right? You can any information you want is out there, dude. You have AI now. You have all this stuff, dude. Nothing, no leaf unturned at this point in time. But back then, that was a big deal. I tell you guys all the time about video games or with comic books, man. There wasn't a lot of big publications covering this stuff. The people that covered this stuff were actual fans, and that was their drive because they loved it, right? They would do that. Nowadays the mainstream media covers all this stuff. This is why it's kind of trashy now. But Andre was just one of those guys that you see because he was so huge, and you just didn't see guys like that all the time. And, the media wasn't geared that way. Not like now. You can see 7-footers, in all kind of different parts of the world, or in sports and stuff like that. That was not the case back then. So when you see somebody like Andre, man, and that's why they called him the Giant, dude, that actually meant something. Or if you saw Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk, Lou Ferrigno is a big guy for a bodybuilder. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", six. No, I think he's 6'5". Right? And a lot of times when people see bodybuilders, they're usually shorter. And that's not saying that they're short. I'm just saying like 6 foot, maybe shorter, right? And then when you see a guy that's dominantly tall, but he also fills out like a bodybuilder, that's why Lou Ferrigno is such a phenomenon, right? An anomaly for his time, and that's why he played the Incredible Hulk in the TV show. Just being honest, right? Um, but when you saw a guy like Andre, dude, he was like I think they called him the eighth wonder of the world. I think that was his title. Sorry, I'm kind of dating myself, guys. But to have somebody like Hulk Hogan come along, being Hulk Hogan, being who he is, dude, and he just look, dude. He was a perfect person, perfect time, perfect place, perfect time. That's all I'm gonna say. Dude, he had it all, dude. When you look at him, especially if you go watch those old clips, dude, of Hogan, dude, you see it right there, dude. He just came in at the right time. He had the right look. He had all the charisma he needed. He was able to transition wrestling outside of what it was, which was more regional sporting, Um, and then he was able to take it to that next level. And at WrestleMania, that's why everybody remembers that WrestleMania 3. But for me, being a wrestling fan, man, I loved his rivalry with King Kong Bundy. King Kong Bundy was like one of my favorite heels of all time. Big John Studd, another big dude. Um, Man, and then of course his epic battles with the Iron Sheik. And I don't see a lot of people sharing that stuff. It's out there though. I watch it all the time. And then I follow the Iron Sheik. He passed away, but they still get his X account going, Twitter account going, and I love it dude because he's always talking. Because Iron Sheik on the in fact, if you want, dude, there's a documentary on the Iron Sheik. You guys should watch that, dude. It'll blow your mind because a lot of times when you have these heels, especially when we did that, right? That's how Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania kind of started. That is because it was like Hulk Hogan was like the All American wrestler, and then you bring wrestlers like Nikita Koloff, not Nikita Koloff. What's his name? I know it's Boris Zukov, and I can't believe I'm forgetting the other dude's name, man. He was the more popular one. Um, what's his name? Oh my gosh, dude! If the guys were here, somebody could tell me. You know what I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to look that up, dude, because it's gonna drive me nuts. Boris. Oh, I forget how popular the name Boris is. WWF Wrestling legend. Boris. Is it Boris Karloff? Oh, Boris. No, dude. Come on, Bing. You're letting me down, dude. I hate using Google. So, but anyway, dude, it was the middle of the Cold War, right? And that's what kicked it all off. And WWF at that time, dude, they were right there to take advantage of all that, right? And I loved a lot of the guys that played Russian wrestlers, dude. Just their personas, their characters. I thought they were pretty awesome. Uh, man, what's his name, dude? That's gonna Nikolai Volkov, right? Nikolai Volkov. Let me double check. Hold on. Dude, this is driving me nuts. This is what happens when you get old, dude. Nikolai, come on, bro. Nikolai. Yeah, Nikolai Volkov. That's who he is. Ah, he was awesome, man. Those, yeah, classy Freddie Bassie was the manager. Dude, if you are a wrestling fan, like especially if you're of the newer generation of wrestling fan, go back and watch some of those old clips, man. I mean, just the theater itself is just amazing to watch. Um, but yeah, man, that set the standard for back then, dude. Hulk Hogan wrestling all these dudes representing the U.S. And I think that's why some people are pissed off, especially nowadays, right? Let's be honest. In today's political climate, the way everything's politically charged, I talk about it on this channel all the time. You just want to go watch a movie and somebody's trying to stuff their ideology down your throat. This is why a lot of these movies were failing. I mean, not only, like they couldn't even do it to tell a good story, they were just heavy handed with it. Right. And then they would insult you at the same time if you don't have the same belief system they do. And that's what it boils down to with Hulk Hogan. If you flash back to like the 70s, late 70s, and going through the 80s, dude, dude, he was the pinnacle of what everybody thought an American was. This is why the Real American song, dude, I've been listening to it nonstop. And it's amazing to me how many people get triggered by that song. Right. And of course bring up his shortcomings and stuff like that, right? And I'm just like, dude, you don't understand how it was back then in the day. I mean, look, dude, and even back then, some people might not have identified with it, dude, but you're not gonna step on this man's legacy, dude. This dude was pro wrestling, especially at that time. And again, just like Jordan did, right? You had your Dr. J's, dude. You had people in the NBA back in the day, especially in the 70s, that should have got their flowers, but they never did. Right? Bigger than life personalities helped build that foundation of what the NBA was to become. Right? Even when you had a Kareem in there, dude, I was like, I'm a huge Laker fan, right? Still am. When Kareem went to LA from Minnesota, right? No, not Milwaukee. Sorry, Lakers came from Minnesota. Anyway, and you had like your Elgin Baylors and your Jerry West and stuff like that. Your Pistol Pete Maravich, right? So they built up on that, dude. But when Magic and Bird came in, dude, that set the stage for everything. And then when Jordan came in, that went next level. That's just the reality of it. That's how sports was. That's how sports is, right? Again, a lot of this stuff, and it was raw, dude, and it was organic, and that's the beauty of it. A lot of the stuff that you have now, dude, you can't do that, man, because everybody's looking at everything, right? And so it's hard to kind of relate that to a younger generation of people, a younger generation of people that just look at certain things a certain way, and will never understand how it feels to have Hulk Hogan come out, and then just rocking the American flag with his red and yellow, right, ripping his shirt, going crazy, stirring the fans all up, right, fighting against fighting against the Iron Sheik, right, or going against the Russians. You know what I'm saying? At that time, like when you watch Rocky Four, you feel that. Dude. Of course, in this current age we live in, you can't do that, right? Or people are so nihilistic nowadays, dude. That's just the reality of it. But one thing I will do, dude, I remember him for what he is, dude, and I have fond memories of him. Man. So some of the greatest moments in wrestling was he was involved in it. That's why you see people not just sharing the WrestleMania 3. Everybody's showing the battle he had with Rock. Decades later. When was that? Was that 2018? Did have that? No. When was WrestleMania? No, it wasn't 2018. When was that? Hogan versus Rock. WrestleMania 18. Yeah, it was WrestleMania 18. Dude, what was the date on that? Was that 2002? I know it was early 2000s sometime. let me put this down, dude. I don't want to give false information, bum scoops, as we say here. March 17th. Wow, was it that long ago? From now? Yeah, it had to be right because of the NWO, you know. But he went against Rock against the Rock, and the Rock is huge back then, dude. The Rock and Stone Cold were untouchable, right? And for him to come back, and I saw this great interview with him when they're talking to him, where he was going to be the heel, and then during that match, as you can see, and a lot of people, there's two types that they show the video, and then there's people showing the unedited video. And I'm not saying they edited it for nefarious purposes; it's just editing. But people are showing like the actual volume of the crowd when that match was going on, the back and forth, because there's huge Rock fans, and then of course with Hulkster, and the Hulk did a great interview when he talked about that, and that's why they brought back the yellow and gold because of his fans. Like they never really forgot him, even though he went to WCW. Yeah, so they but you listen to that audio, dude, it's amazing to listen to. To me, that's pinnacle of wrestling, right? That's pinnacle of a wrestling fan right there. To be a fan of the Rock, and then because wrestling's so generational, right? Wrestling's so generational, man. You have fans from every you have fans from all different timelines when it comes to wrestling. And then to see people cheer for him so much, man, because that's a big impact that he had, dude. And nobody can take that away from him. I don't care what anybody says, dude. You can have problems with the man, sure. People have problems with every icon or every figure. That's not. I don't care, but you're never gonna diminish what WrestleMania was, dude. It's just because it. The reason why you never can do that, dude, because it set a standard for what wrestling is today. And if it wasn't for him, dude, at the end of the day, if it wasn't for him, dude, a lot of these dudes would not exist. Even the people that have issues with it, and I can understand that too, dude. I'm not what I'm talking like if like some of the interviews you see with other wrestlers. Look, dude, not everybody's gonna get along in life, right? And then people make choices, and Hulk Hogan was the biggest thing there was at the time, especially during the '80s and '90s. Look at what happened when he went to WCW. He brought a bunch of fans over there, dude, increased their numbers, not on the level that they wanted to, and then he heel turned, dude, and that thing just blew up. In fact, I'll say that, dude, for a lot of the generational stuff that happened within wrestling, their big moments, aside from a couple, Hulk Hogan was always a part of it. And that's what I mean is legacy, dude. That's what Hulkamania is. It's more than just the rock and wrestling and the fighting the Russians and fighting the Iron Sheik, going against Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter had a great interview that I watched, and he talked about that, what made them do what they did, dude. And the creative control that Hulk Hogan had over his character has probably helped him a lot in his career as well as wrestling in general, man. Because sometimes, as you guys know, man, there's a dark side to wrestling where these guys get shafted. A lot of them, suffer from health problems later on in life. A lot of them didn't have any money. You know what I'm saying? Um, if there's one thing I hope Triple H does, now that he's WWF, man, is to kind of round up everybody and kind of make it, like how the NFL does for players, dude. Where the NBA was going for their players. I think wrestling should do the same thing. I know they don't got the same market cap. They make a lot of money, dude, but they don't have that market cap that the huge professional sports has. But I see him doing a lot of deals, man. We'll see what Triple H does, dude. One thing I do like about Triple H, dude, they had a really good um, moment of silence, 10 ring bell salute for Hogan, which was really cool. They also did it in Japan. A lot of people you guys don't know, man, is that a lot of these guys were big in Japan as well. Not just Hulk Hogan, but a lot of the wrestling superstars, dude. And it's kind of a throwback for me to the regional stuff. Because in America, man, a lot of these wrestlers were like they were the good guys. They go to Japan, they're actually heels. All right, let's go. Yeah, but that was pretty awesome, dude. It was a bittersweet. I would just put it to you that bittersweet because he passed, and nobody was expecting that, dude, because you never heard really anything. Now there's people coming out said people are talking about the health. I didn't see any of that kind of stuff, and of course because of the Hulkster's politics, right? He's always in the news now, right? When he went to the RNC convention and he did what he did, which some people did not like. I thought it was pretty awesome myself, right? Just because of the Sony shit, right? Look, dude, I have my own politics. I don't need people to tell me what my politics are, or to agree with me. I don't care. Right? I believe what I believe. I know what I know, and that's how I roll. Um, but just for the pomp and for the pageantry, right? The pomp and circumstance of it all was pretty cool, especially for some place like the RNC, which is pretty stuffy, right? If I'm being honest, I always say this about Republicans: they're not the good time; they're the long time. They're supposed to be like that stable force to the Democratic Party, who's more emotional on a lot of stuff, right? They're the ones that fight for people's rights and all this kind of crap, right? Um, both parties are trash, though. I mean, the Republicans have lost their way, and the Democrats have fallen off the deep end. So either way you look at it, we're screwed. But just for that moment in time, dude, it was cool to see him out there, and I think it's important for somebody like him to speak his mind. I don't have problems with a lot of the um, any type of person speaking their mind, as long as they can. I think I have a problem with it is like if they say something and then you say something back to them, and I'm not saying disrespectfully or crass, right? I'm talking about like you just challenge them and then they block you. Then I'm like, okay, well, you're a punk, right? That's what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Um, that's irritating to me. But at the end of the time, and look, dude, he's an older guy, and if you look at his earlier career, dude, it shouldn't surprise you that he's so like one person said, right in one word what you thought of Hulk Hogan, and of course, immortal, legendary, stuff like that. To me, it's Americana. Americana. That's what I would put down. Because when I think of Hulk Hogan, man, I think of a better time. When you think about Hulk Hogan, and he kind of lived it, dude. He's definitely flawed, dude. Everybody's flawed. Everybody's flawed, bro. I see people out there is like, oh, he did this, did. I'm like, look, bro. Every day, one day you're gonna stand in judgment before God, and all of your stuff's gonna be put on blast, right? So don't. That's why, for a lot of people, dude, don't be judging, because nobody knows what people does behind closed doors, and then one day it'll be revealed. So check yourself. In fact, humble yourself when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I'm not protecting Hogan. I mean, in general, no matter what's going on or all that stuff, right? And so for me, that's why it doesn't bother me, man. Because again, at the end of the day, dude, he gave his life to Jesus, dude. He became a Christian. And then there's people out there, oh, how do you know become a Christian? Trust me, dude, he became a Christian, dude. He professed his faith in Jesus as his Lord and Savior, and then he also got baptized on top of that. And then when you get older, man, things change, dude. Things change, and he talked about it. He gave a testimonial, which is really good, about how he was, dude. He actually got saved when he was 14. He said, but he said he was a musician originally. That I did not know. I know that he played the guitar, but I didn't know he wanted a career as a musician. And then he said some wrestlers saw him, and because of his size, they're like, "Oh, you'd be a great." I guess because of his size, and they said they had a charisma about him, and they recommended that he become a wrestler, and that was probably the best career choice he can make. But like a lot of people, man, he got caught up in. He even says that he got caught up in wrestling, the rock and roll, um, you know, all of that stuff. But even back then, dude, I remember, dude, the say your prayers, you take your vitamins, right? The way he would do that had a lot of impact on a lot of people, man. And overall, dude, to me, he was a good guy, especially back then, especially in my formidable years, dude. In my formidable years, dude, he's probably one of the biggest icons right there in my life, right? And that's what I always remember him for, right? Oh, sorry. Let me make sure nobody's okay. I'm good. I mean, that's what I always remember him for, dude. He was a force of nature, and he set a standard that. Let me see if I can pull this up. He set a standard, dude, that I don't think anybody's gonna be able to match, man, because they can't. They can't do it. And the reason that's why I say they can is because he's an original. There's just certain moments in pop culture, and I do classify pop culture as sports as well. And again, that's because of me and how I grew up, but especially wrestling, because wrestling at the end of the day is entertainment. I think that's one of the best things they did. They call it sports entertainment instead of trying to get legitimacy from like the sporting world, right? Like how you see a lot of people like there's that competition where people are smacking each other, just slapping each other, right? And there's an argument about that, or like the e-games, right? People playing video games and considering that a sport and stuff like that. Instead of trying to get justification for people to just do your own thing. And that's what wrestling did. Wrestling got smart to like, yeah, we're the leaders of sports entertainment. And then all that stuff died. Boom, dead. It was gone. Can you see this? Yeah, I'm going to share a lot of stuff, dude. Wait, hold on. Yeah, but there you go, man. I love this, dude, because at least with Bing, I use Bing. You guys know I use Bing, so I get my Bing points. But look at this, dude. It's all out there. That's the difference between now and then, like I was talking about earlier. And naturally, dude, it's depending on how you search and stuff like that, you can get your dude. I know a lot of people, and that's why I can tell. Like I tell you, like the biggest fans right now are from the Attitude Era, with the WWF or WWE, um, or and then cross with the WCW guys back in the day. Because the stuff you can tell, but just by the stuff that's being talked about, the age of the people talking about it, whether it's people online that are just fans and then people in the media, they can actually date themselves honestly. So that's why when I'm on here talking about Hulk Hogan and or when I'm on X actually, and somebody shares a clip of King Kong Bundy, like I did, I shared a clip, no, a Big John Studd, and then King Kong Bundy was in the clip too. But you show a clip like that, and people know your age and know the generation of which you speak, right? Dude, I remember dude, back in the day, dude, wrestlers. The thing about wrestling when I was growing up, dude, is you have to have some kind of charisma, or you have to have a gimmick, right? And for Hulk Hogan, it was his charisma. Guys like Magnum TA, it was either in their name or they had the charisma or both, and or then you were just the heel, or your or physical attributes, right? You're just bigger than life, right? Especially for younger fans. Hold on, but yeah, dude. So shout out, man. Look, dude, to all the Hulkamaniacs out there like myself. Um, Again, bittersweet, but I've been enjoying what this walk down memory lane. As busy as I've been because I've been doing this all week, and it's that's been the great thing about it, even though it's a negative situation for me who grew up a fan of wrestling and Hulk Hogan. Um, to me, there's nobody bigger. And look, dude, and I'm not trying to degrade all the guys that came after, or the kid, or the guys that was before. Man, there was like like Ric Flair to me is like people talk about their Mount Rushmore of wrestling. Dude, Hogan and Flair will always be on that mountain. But those two guys will never change. Those two guys are to me the biggest, and that's because they were the two biggest influences on me, man. Ric Flair, especially when he was younger, man. Go check out I'm talking about the older clips of Ric Flair. Man. I've never seen anybody work a mic like him. Very few people can, and he's one of the best. Um, and then I grew up in the era of like Ric Flair, and I actually kind of like came in midway because he was already established. Right, again, a lot of the wrestling was regional, dude. I watched NWA wrestling because they had a like deep connection in the South, right? So you had NWA, then they had to change their name to or change their name to WCW. And but when that stuff all, it's one of those things you hear about, about all, you know, having people like a person like Hulk Hogan, that everything else rose, like the impact that he had. But if you're a wrestling fan, you already had other people that you're watching as well. Dude, I watched a lot of stuff, from Japan as well, dude. It was just how hardcore of a fan were you, and I was pretty hardcore when it came to wrestling, right? So a lot of these people that were discovered years later, right? Like nobody knew who the Horseman was, until they made, until more people started watching, and they made their footprint, dude. Dr. Death Steve Williams is still one of my favorite wrestlers. Damn, I'm drawing a blank right now because I'm so old, man. But I can see the flashes of people in my head right now. Cowboy Bob Orton, Bob Backlund. It was interesting because Bob Backlund came back, like what was it, in the late '80s, early '90s, and had a little storyline that he ran through pretty quickly though. But I mean, back in the day, that dude was the man. Dude, some of the announcers, man, like Gorilla Monsoon. It has a little bit before my time, right? But again, you can go check out the archives, right? It's just like I talked to you guys about '70s Marvel comics, dude. It's just I went backwards, right? That's the great thing about now, though. I know there's a lot of stuff missing, but it'd be cool if we could bring it back. That's what I was hoping that would happen. I remember when the WC or WWF had WWE had their app on Xbox, and then they went online and stuff like that, and they had the vote. That's what I was hoping they would do. They would pay tribute to people out of all wrestling. Now I understand there's things to be said about. Hold on, let's see. There's things to be said about marketing or not marketing, but rights and digital rights, especially, and all that stuff. Right, like I wanted to share some video, man, but my channel's been getting flagged lately with stuff. So, and that surprised me, man, because I don't monetize my channel at all. I don't monetize it at all. So I was actually kind of surprised when they. I don't know how all that stuff works, dude. I don't care. It's not like I get a lot of views anyway. You want to block my video, block it. I think it's stupid, actually, that companies do that. I don't know, man. A lot of the people doing marketing nowadays, dude. I mean, I can see why some of these dudes are getting let go, dude. You gotta there's a culture. Again, I've been talking about this on my channel. There's a culture to a lot of this stuff that these guys nowadays don't get. Right. A lot of them are just doing it based on clicks and views, and a lot of them are basing it on, what's hot, what's not hot, whatever algorithm's telling them, dude. And that's not how you do it, especially with pop culture. That's why they're losing so much money, and a lot of them are losing their jobs. They don't get it, and they don't get it because they treat it as a profession, as a job, and not a labor of love, like a lot of us do. This is why I get so adamant about gaming. In fact, we can transition, guys. Man, I just wanted to go down that memory lane because I mean, he was a big part of my life when I was growing up, dude. The prayers and the vitamins, brother. You know what I'm saying, dude? And the whole thing with Miss Elizabeth and the Macho Man, dude. I used to do a great Macho Man imitation, but I can't do it anymore. And Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, they became the Mega Powers, but then they broke off, and it's because technically it was kind of because of Miss Elizabeth. But I remember Hulk, the Macho Man used to be, I see the lust in the eyes. He used to do that voice, dude. I used to be able to do it really well, but I can't do it anymore. Oh yeah. Hogan. Oh, those are just good times, man. Dude, we had so many great wrestlers come and go too, man. I mean, within the generations. I'm not saying passed away. Then there have been that passed away. I'm talking about just different tag teams and different wrestlers who left their mark. Some of them became immortal. Some of them were just kind of come and go. But that's part and parcel of being a wrestling fan, dude. I do miss those days. I've been trying to get into WWF, dude. It's been kind of hard for me, man. I definitely feel it's because I've gotten older. In fact, that's what we're kind of going to talk about in the podcast today, man, because I'm seeing that even with as we transition to the next topic. But shout out to the Hulkster, man, to the millions of fans out there like myself that will remember what he is and what his legacy did, and how he took wrestling from the regional type of sport that it was to a global franchise. And it all started with him. So shout out to the Hulk Hogan, man. Rest in peace, my brother, dude. Glad that you became saved. Glad that you're a Christian. Glad you got to share testimony. And yeah, man. I mean, rest in peace, dude. Rest in peace, brother. And see you on the other side, man. All right, man. Let's transition, guys. Hold on. Let's get back. What else we want to talk about? Let me clear this real quick. I just saw another thing popped up on Hulk Hogan, dude. I forgot about it. But yeah, we're moving on, guys. We're moving on. Sorry. So I know in the title I have DC versus Marvel. Let me share this. Share screen. Which I feel is not even a thing anymore, man. Both of them have their problems. Of course, if you listen to fans like E-Rock, the world's most powerful, or E-Rock, the Don King of Xbox, talk about it, dude, because he's a DC fan. I don't know, dude. I think it's just being fabricated right now because that thing is long gone, dude. And that was something of a different age, Marvel versus DC. Definitely when I was growing up, dude. I hated DC Comics. Mr. Kima, before there was Hulk Hogan, there was Superstar Billy Graham. Yeah, Superstar Billy Graham, Gorilla Monsoon. Dude, I remember what's his name? Oh my gosh, dude, I see his face, but I can't put his name up there. Oh yeah, dude. I mean, Mr. Kima, 100%, dude. Before Hulk Hogan, dude, there was wrestling, dude, but it's just so regional at the time. There's a lot of people that I like. That's why you see when even when we were growing up watching wrestling in the 80s, especially, a lot of the wrestlers there were sons of wrestlers from before. And then fast forward to now, right? Those people's sons are because you have somebody like Cowboy Bob Orton that was pretty big at the time, right? And then for that time, and then his son, man, is Randy Orton, right? And then Cowboy Bob Orton's dad was also a wrestler, so that's what I mean. It's generational. You look at what's that dude? Roman Reigns, man, his family, his generations of family, going back to High Chief Peter Maivia, right? Which of course is The Rock's grandfather. And Rocky's dad, man, one of my favorite wrestlers is Rocky Johnson, dude. That dude was awesome. Him and Tony Atlas, dude. Him and Tony Atlas, dude. I feel bad because of the time that they were in. They never got their flowers, man. But luckily, you had Ron Simmons come along, dude. You had Harlem Heat. Harlem Heat was a great tag team, dude. I think one of the best. And then eventually, right, a lot of the guys that should have got their comeuppance back then, but the market was smaller, dude. It was just not like. And I only say this because you couldn't talk to everybody about wrestling until Hulk Hogan came around. Then everybody started watching it. It's like when Jordan hit the NBA, dude. People outside of regular people who watch basketball. I play basketball and I watch basketball. I love basketball. I consume it all the time. Basketball for me was right up there. Still gaming and comic books, right? But I play basketball all the time, dude. And I watched it, consumed it, dude. In fact, I think the highest pinnacle of NBA was when it was on 3 or 4 channels. Actually, technically 5 if you put the regular broadcast and they would switch out. But there was a time in the NBA, man, they were huge, super huge, dude. I mean, and then again, it's a good time. It was a good time too because you were there when they were building it. It was all coming up, and you experienced that firsthand, right? And that's another thing, you know. Yeah, I remember when Jordan hit, and then like all the NBA teams, man, because just the talent level, right? It went through a generational shift, and the talent level was, there was more people playing basketball naturally, so you had better talent out there as well. Where you had teams like Cleveland had 3 superstars. I think all 3 of those dudes are Hall of Famers, right? Well, maybe not Larry Nance. I don't know Larry Nance, but I don't know about Brad Doherty either. But you had Mark Price, and eventually Craig Eagle would join him. And then it went away from not just, and then Jordan was the biggest thing, right? But you still had Magic, right? And you still had Hollywood in LA, right? But then people started gravitating to people like the Microwave, Eddie Johnson, right? The Bad Boys out in Detroit, right? People was actually paying attention to who Scottie Pippen was, right? You had Xavier McDaniel, you had all these well-known NBA players, dude, and it went. So that's what I'm talking about, dude. The same thing with Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan came, he's like the biggest thing, but eventually Hillbilly Jim, Junkyard Dog, JYD was like one of my favorite people. And then what I started doing in wrestling, dude, is I like the people like Iron Mike Sharp, right? I like the people like Special Delivery Jones, right? It's like the C class of wrestlers that you would cheer for, right? And this funny thing about it is you watch enough wrestling. Like I remember this time with Iron Mike Sharp, dude. Like he was a big, strong dude, but he would always play that heel kind of goofy character. And then one time, dude, and then every once in a while, dude, they get to do their move or get to do a string of moves together that will remind you of how good these people were, right? Because you couldn't be a scrub, man, and be in the ring with these dudes. You wouldn't last long, right? You have to perform, right? And some of the best wrestlers are the ones that put the people over. That's why I always like Bret Hart, dude. Bret Hart, when he worked the ring, dude, he worked the ring in a way that was, man, that dog drives me nuts. And he won't shut up either. You just keep on barking. Sorry. Um, but Bret Hart was one of the best, dude. Like when these two fly him into the ring post, like Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels used to do the over the top. He get thrown into the corner, and then he do that flip and then fly all over flop all over the place, which was awesome. And Bret Hart used to do that. He'd be the one you put him into the corner because they're selling the match. It's almost like a dance. And so as a partner, like a dance partner, right? They fly him in there, and then Bret Hart would go, hard into the corner, dude, and hit his chest, and then kind of back up and fall down, right? And that's to put the other dude up. Like, oh, look at the power of this guy. Like, I remember when they were talking to Triple H, man. He was talking to these wrestlers, and they wanted to become wrestlers, and he was training with them, dude. And one guy, he stopped the dude because he was hitting him, right? But the dude wasn't like reacting to it the right way. And Triple H looked at him and said, "Dude, if we're in the ring and you did this to me, I'd punch you for real." You know what I'm saying? There's an art to it that a lot of people don't understand about wrestling. Mr. Kima, Roddy Piper was the villain of all villains. Yeah, he was awesome, dude. I love Jimmy Superfly Snuka, dude. At that time, he brought Jimmy Superfly Snuka out of his what is it, Piper's Pit? Was it Piper's Pit or Piper's Corner? It's the first thing that he did. He brought he it was messed up too, dude. This is the granted, guy. This is the '80s, right? So don't get all mad. Get your panties in a bunch of stuff, right? But if you come across this video, right? But he invites Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and I remember that, dude. And then at first, right, you think he's kind of being magnanimous. Of course, he wasn't, dude. And he was a heel. And then he had like, hey, come here. And he's like, had a bunch of fruit in there. And he like picked up a pineapple. I remember. And he was like making, in a way, he was like making that off color remarks to Superfly Jimmy Snuka. And Superfly was just there, looking at him. But then Roddy Piper like picked up the pineapple, goes, hey, pineapple, stuff like that, right? Because he's an island boy, right? Superfly Snuka. I think Superfly is actually Fijian. Um, and so he picked up the pineapple, then he ended up hitting him in the head with them. And it was pandemonium breaks out, right? Yeah, but 100% Mr. Keelan, man. I love Roddy Piper, dude. He was awesome, dude. And again, he's another guy that he could just go through the gamut of heel, hero, anti-hero. Dude, he had he had the charisma in his own way. He had the gift of he could work a mic. Um, that's one of the things I see missing now, dude. Like, there's people that can do it and people that can't do it, right? And then those guys are old school. They're classic, dude. They're classic. Right? And I think one of the reasons why is because the time they grew up in, but I just think they just viewed wrestling in a certain way that's just different from now, right? It is a business. People are making money. You want to be put on the card. I don't know, man, but even that cutthroat nature of wrestling back then kind of added to the flavor. I know there's some bad stuff there, right? But all of that stuff, dude, I ate it all up, Mr. Kima. All right, and then and back then, dude, it was just Roddy Piper being Roddy Piper, man. I don't remember, like, I didn't have a conversation, and maybe because of where I was in the school I went to, dude. And even me, dude, I wasn't offended by that stuff. I thought it was funny, right? Of course, Superfly was my boy, so I was like, oh, I hope he beats his takes Piper out because Piper was a bad guy and he played the role really great. He was one of the greats. He still is. He's an original, man. Nobody can top Roddy Piper for what he did. But that's another reason why I said earlier, bro. I love Ric Flair. Ric Flair was just listening to that mic work, man. Not just the woo. Like that's classic Flair, man. But just his gift of gab, dude. Just the way he could just work that mic. Dude, he was just yeah. And then he could be like the flamboyant Ric Flair, but he could get down and dirty. The Four Horsemen, man. I love the Four Horsemen. And one thing I liked about the Four Horsemen, man, is almost like the Avengers, dude. They're always the roster would change every once in a while, and people that you wouldn't expect to be Four Horsemen, or just the way that they were able to do the story and work the story arcs back then, dude. It's poetry, man. I miss that, dude. And that's something from the '70s and '80s, man, when you had to rely on on gimmicks and you have to rely. And I'm not gimmicks as in bad. I know when people say gimmicks now, it's kind of negative. No, um, gimmickry, and you had to like sell stuff. The selling of the person and stuff like that. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But when it did, dude, it was usually magical. And that's another thing too, man. You have to trial by fire, man. A lot of that stuff had to be, you either made it or you don't. That's why for some of the wrestlers now, when I hear some of the stuff they talk about, like these guys are doing podcasts now and they're talking about stuff, which is cool, right? But then just listening to their attitude, and I don't mean attitude isn't bad, but just the way their perspective on things, totally different from the time we grew up in. Totally different. And then I'll let everybody else decide for themselves if that's good or bad for them. For me, it's like it is what it is. But yeah, no doubt, Mr. Kima. I'm just saying, dude, when it comes to Hulk Hogan, dude, like people that never watch wrestling will start talking to me about wrestling. Right. That's kind of the same thing with video games, right? Or any other thing. Because Mr. King, I don't know how old you are, bro, but I'm thinking we're about the same age. Or around the same age. And so, we have the benefit of, again, experiencing that stuff in real time, man, where a lot of other people don't. You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of the stuff that we know from this stuff, we were there. I say that all the time on the channel. We experienced it. That's like when people were trying to tell me stuff about Xbox, right? And I was like, no, you're wrong because I was there when it happened. And I was one of the guys back then that thought it was like, what is Microsoft? You're making a video game console? But because I was a gamer, I'm like, all right, whatever, dude, make a console. If you make good games, I'll play it, but I doubt it. I was kind of in that camp, right? But I remember, dude, people were laughing at that idea. Then Xbox hit, and then of course, again, if you guys go watch Power On, right, it's all right there, right? But then Halo hit, and I played Halo, and that was it. That I got an Xbox. That was my introduction to Xbox. And then I played their other games like Microsoft. There are other games on there that I liked, and that's how I ended up owning an Xbox. I didn't become like an Xbox only until 2013. Ah, dude, how can I said rock and wrestling, but I did not cover that. That was huge too, brother. That was huge too. Wasn't like Wendy Richter, right? Was also with Cyndi Lauper. She was the female. And then you had Hulk Hogan, yeah, Captain Lou Albano. Because look, Captain Lou, man, he was back in the day, dude. And that's another great thing about wrestling, how these guys kind of come back around full circle. But yeah, that was good times too, man. I was watching some of the clips, and then I saw some of the articles where they're talking about it, what an impact that was, especially at that time, Mr. King, with MTV coming in, right? That whole culmination. That's why you see some publications like Rolling Stone talk about uh, Hulk Hogan, which is I think is cool. They need to. Like I was happy that Vince. I know Vince is going through some stuff right now, right? But he came out and he talked about Hogan as well. I thought that was great because that's let's all kind of come together on this. You know what I'm saying? And then let all the other stuff follow through. And plus, the Rolling Stone came out with an article how you can like Hulk Hogan but not that man, right? Of course, right? And they probably went down this whole thing. But during that time, dude, that was humongous, man, dude. You had Brutus the Barber Beefcake. You had I just saw a clip where they had when Miss Elizabeth because Randy Macho Man Savage was getting beat up by Honky Tonk Man and the Heart Foundation. I used to love them. I hated the Heart Foundation and became huge fans, and then I became like my favorite wrestler, if I'm being honest, dude, Bret Hart, the Hitman. Especially when he became the Hitman. But man, I hated the Mouth of the South, dude, and he had the Heart Foundation. Him, was it Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and then they're beating up him and the Honky Tonk Man. They was beating up on the Macho Man, and then Miss Elizabeth she got thrown down and she went out of the ring. She went to the back and she grabbed Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan came out and saved Macho Man. That's when they kind of formed their little thing. I was just watching that clip, dude. But again, JYD, dude, he loved Junkyard Dog, dude. He was awesome. And then and it spawned generations, man, of other wrestlers that came after him, right? And I was deep into wrestling into like 2010, 2012, right? And then it kind of just dropped off for me, probably because of my age, brother. But yeah, that cartoon used to watch that religiously. That was a huge event, man. This is remember, man, Madison Square Garden, dude. Back then, you sold out Madison Square Garden, dude. You was somebody, right? And that was cool too. Madison Square Garden actually put up a tribute to Hulk Hogan as well on their stuff, which I thought was awesome. Good times, Mr. Kima. Good times, bro. I feel you, man. We just, and I wrote in one of the guys' comments that he put out a great video. I just wrote, man, we forgot how good we had it. It was awesome. But switching gears, guys, because it's already dang, it's 9:30. Um, I kind of wanted to run it long to see if anybody else wanted to jump in. I did send the links out to everyone. And again, I do apologize for doing it like this. I wanted to do it on Friday night, but after getting that flat tire, dude, everything went out the door. And it's just kind of sad, right? That it took me 2 days to get that to deal with that problem, and I'm still not finished, guys, because I got to get another tire. Um, did I miss something? Yeah. Oh, okay. And I still have to go back. What they did for me, man, is they fixed the two that were really bad. I got a third one I got to replace. I'm running on a spare, dude, so I got to watch out where I drive. And when that tire is available, man, I want to rush down there and get it. So let's switch gears, guys. I want to kind of jump on this. Yeah, Mr. Kima. That WWF Saturday morning cartoon was fun. Yeah, dude, our cartoons back then was awesome, bro. What we got to watch back then, dude, and that was one, but that was huge. Because, like, again, yeah, we were wrestling fans, man, to get to see that and all the, just like they catered specifically to us, dude. Not to mention all the marketing that they did, all the freaking. Somebody had a picture of they had the Hulk Hogan and my wrestling buddies, man. Those things are super cool. Dude, the figures or slash quote unquote collectibles they came out with over the years. Um, dude, the cereal deals, all that stuff, man. All the marketing, dude. That's capitalism, 80s capitalism 101 right there, which was awesome. At least for me, I enjoyed it. But let's transition, brother. I gotta get through this, man, and hopefully some other guys jump in. If not, we can wrap it up. But again, I put the Marvel versus DC thing. I don't like I said earlier, dude. That's not even a thing. I think they're trying to bring it up to try to gen up some, to get reactions, to get clicks, man, but also to drum up some business, man, because these guys are hurting right now. I know that Man of Steel, or not Man of Steel, sorry, oops, Freudian slip. I know that the newest Superman movie made some. I don't know what the box office is. Hold on, I should have done that first. Let's go look at Superman. Superman box office numbers. Let's check it out. Let's do all. Yeah, tops 400 million worldwide. As of July 19th. They're saying that it'll won't make the 700 million. That seems to be the magic numbers everybody's um talking about. And is that because of Man of Steel? Sorry, I'm not that heavy. If Iraq then they could comment on this more. I mean, so it made 400 million, I think, opening weekend, right? But I don't know where it stands now, if I'm being honest, guys. See, but already you see why Superman 2025 box office numbers could struggle moving forward. I know they had somewhat of a drop. Um, and again, the magic number for most people. Oh wait, let me see. Superman's second weekend higher with 58 million plus propels Warner Brothers to top of YTD studio market share. So I think one of the problems the studios are dealing with is their overseas markets. I think this is Superman's one of the first movies to do well, to do better locally than it did globally. Yeah, I wish there was better. I mean, it started off hot, dude. I'm not gonna lie. It started off really hot. Like hitting that 400 million mark was good for the. I mean, not the number that I think they need to make as well, but so I'm pretty sure there's people out there that thought it was going to be a flop and not do well. But there's, guys, if you listen to me on my channel, there's a myriad of reasons why I could give you that these movies aren't doing well anymore, and it's not just about the quality anymore. That narrative of the quality, of which some people are in denial, especially in the mainstream media and then the entertainment media. I've said it a ton of times. Do you watch this stuff that just feels like people are writing for themselves, kind of fan fiction? And that's not how you do it, guys. You have to write for the audience. And in this case, I think James Gunn and I'm talking about a general audience. Like James Gunn was looking for like what I hear is like he was going for the Gen Z audience, right? And unfortunately for these guys, man, Gen Z, for the most part, from what I see, are not interested in this stuff, dude. They've moved on to other things, and they don't participate in pop culture like the cycle's broken. And it's always been that way in a sense. I mean, times have changed, and they have to be able to change with it. And sometimes these guys, either they don't do it enough or they overcalculate. And I don't know, right? I know I put the Marvel versus DC things, but this is why I'm just sitting here. It doesn't matter to me anymore because as a Marvel person, dude, I don't even participate in their ecosystem, for lack of a better word, dude. I don't watch their movies. I don't subscribe to Disney Plus, who has two of the biggest brands and two of my favorite brands that I grew up with, which is Star Wars and Marvel. And I have no interest. I have no interest in it, if I'm being honest, guys. Uh, so let's go back to Fantastic Four. Let's see. Yeah, so for the most part, from the people that I follow, I know the Marvel fans, dude, they're saying that it's not a bad movie, or it's not as bad as they thought it was going to be, and then other people said it's actually pretty good. The thing I can't stand about the Fantastic Four is I felt we never got the full Fantastic Four experience, especially somebody like me who grew up reading their comic books. One thing that I did like that they said it was going to be Kirby esque, but on the flip side of that is like, what does that mean? Right? What's your definition of being Kirby esque? I did like the idea of them doing like that '60s retro thing. That looked pretty cool. But then when I saw the cast, and then when I saw that they were gonna what they were gonna do with the Silver Surfer, I checked out. Because again, man, I know people like, oh, you just don't like women. I'm like, no, dude. We never got the. I would want them to do like the true Fantastic Four. Now there are people saying that read the comic books like, oh, this is pretty much close as it gets. Not good enough for me, dude. Sorry, and that's a me thing, right? I mean, I'm just like that. I'm not gonna spend money on this kind of stuff. Dude, I would rather like yesterday. I was waiting for the car, my tires on my car, dude. I had to wait there for a while, man. I went through like one whole graphic novel on solo leveling that I had to catch up on from the novel. I've watched all the cartoons, and I would recommend you read the books, right? Because if you read them, there's more stuff in there, and they did take liberties within the cartoon, and then in the books you can flesh it out a little bit more, right? In the graphic novel, and so I read the volume, third volume, second volume, right? And it was a great read, man, and I liked it and I enjoyed it, and I was so that's what I mean, guys. Is like, okay, do I take my chance on a movie that I probably won't like, right? From a company I can't stand, and run by a group of people I don't like that don't like me, right? That's case in point with the Superman. It's made for a younger generation. It's not made for somebody like me, right? I was watching Nerd Rod. He was on Piers Morgan's show, and I think he nailed it, dude. It's like, so the person that needs to speaking of Hulk Hogan, the person that needs to do Superman, dude, has to have some kind of inkling of Americana. And I'm using that word a lot today. That's gonna be the word of the day for me. Um, but that's what you need. You need somebody like that to do it, or with an inkling, right, of that feeling, dude. Because there's that part of Superman that informs his character that people gloss over or they don't want to touch, right? Because you hire a lot of these people that don't like that stuff. So that's my personal opinion, dude. You guys can disagree with me what you want, but I'm just being honest. Dude, again, this is why a lot of people, when they look at Hulk Hogan, he's a throwback, man. He's a throwback from a time when, people were like waving the flag and stuff. And people nowadays, I mean, there's people in this country that don't like that, dude. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. Dude, look, I was in the Navy, right? And one thing you want to know is like if you're on a crew and that boat's going down, that all hands are on deck. When they cry all hands on deck because you don't want to sink. And if you got somebody out there trying to sink the ship while you're trying to save it, that's how I feel like the country is now. Just being honest, right? And so if you're gonna do patriotic characters, like, and when I mean patriotic, dude, I mean just typical. That's what Captain America, dude. Marvel nailed it with Captain America, right? Captain America is a representation of America, right? But even in the stories, man, and casting, uh, what's his name, Chris Evans as the character, right? And they gave him some shades, a little bit of shade of gray, dude, but not a lot, right? Because it especially for that, it was a period piece on top of that, so that would have detracted, I think, if they would have went too heavy on that. But you see people doing that now for characters that are supposed to be like one of the things that makes Superman who he is his upbringing in Kansas, right? Ma and Pa Kent, right? He's not from originally. He's not a naturalized citizen. He's technically an alien from another world, right? From another world, and I know they took liberties with that as well, in the movie, from what I read. But when he comes here, dude, a lot of his moral compass is established by his parents and where he grew up, right? And that's just the reality of it. So you got to deal with it, man. To gloss over it, that's why some of these people that do Superman, dude, it feels empty. Like I think the best one that was ever done right now, in the stuff that, or at least what I like watching, aside from Justice League, the cartoon, but with Smallville, right? Because you got to see that firsthand. Right? They really paid a lot of attention to that because they were focusing number one on Smallville. In fact, the writers and the creators really didn't want him to go as far as being Superman. They're actually focusing on Clark and what makes him Superman. And when you start off with that premise, and then you have to address the issue of what makes him who he is, right? And that's where a lot of these guys fall short, in my opinion. Like Marvel, when they did that's why they did the first Avenger, right? It was important for them to do that because even though that movie, some people felt it was I want to say mid, but it like people liked that, but it was like, oh yeah, it's a good movie. That's from what I hear. And it wasn't the draw that everybody thought. Where it pays dividends is when he goes to the Avengers, right? Because they did the Man at a Time piece, which they did really well. Because when he shows up, dude, he's a throwback. And then you have all these other people around you. That's what actually he was the glue that brought everything together. Where Tony was the brain, the bronze, and the brain and the money, right? Um, uh, Steve Rogers was that glue. Which is more realistic, right? When they have the argument on the helicarrier, and of course Stark with all his baggage, and then Captain America, Man at a Time thing. That's why it works so well, right? Because they would not get along. It's one of the things that made Batman v Superman so awesome. And shout out to Frank Miller who did that because he looked at the characters and he's like, dude, you have a Boy Scout and a person that's with shades of gray. These guys would not get along. They would not be friends. And that's why he did what he did with Dark Knight Returns, which is one of the best comic books ever written. Yeah, dude. Okay, so I mean, look, I'm being facetious with the title, dude. Would I want to return to those glory days? Yeah, sure, I would. Right? Because that means to me the storytelling and the characters would be treated better than what they are now, in my opinion. Um, you don't have to agree with me, but definitely on the Marvel side, dude. I mean, again, just the way they cast people, right? Just the way that they, I don't know, and I don't know what's going on with them, dude. They actually, I was dubious of them when they first started coming out with Iron Man. Of course, being a fan that was always wanting to see these people on big screen, right? Hoping they do their best, man. But of course, having like reservations galore when it came to them actually kicking off the studio and stuff like that. But they did it. It's funny to me because they should have failed so many times, and they were able to make it and become that brand, that the biggest brand that they are now when it comes to cinematic, right, movies and stuff like that. Because again, aside from Spider-Man and the Hulk, most Marvel characters are not known, and I know this because I collected the comic books, and a lot of us were comic book fans, right? And then and they had some notoriety and stuff like that, but more people can name the DC guys than they can the Marvel guys, or used to be able to. Now that Marvel blew up and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's hard to see me watch them do this, dude. Like commit suicide, basically, right? They had it all, man. With Phase Three, dude, they should have been able to launch off, and that's when it all fell apart. And I don't know. I mean, I know, right? The DEI stuff. Kevin Feige wanted to be accepted by Hollywood, so of course they have their rules, right? If you're going to be in Hollywood, you got to do ABCD. This is why it's great to see all of this stuff fail. And for me, you know what I'm saying? I was like, no, dude, you betrayed the fans. You betrayed what got you here. Dude, you should have stuck with that. And if you couldn't, some of it's out of fear, man, because they don't know. I mean, if we're being honest, Avengers 2, a lot of people felt that should have been the end. At least from a general perspective, right? It's like, oh wow, it can't get any better than this. And when people start seeing that, dude, that's when the pressure really comes on, and that's when Kevin Feige should have stepped up his game. But obviously, seeing what Kevin Feige does now, there's no way he could have done it. That's why I think he glommed onto this whole let's make this more diverse. Let's get more minority and women characters in there. To me, it's just like you're just scared, dude, because you reached the plateau, dude, and now you have to expand beyond that. And that's the difference between people that are ultra successful and people that kind of make it, right? And then it fell upon him to do that, and he never did. And he didn't even try. That's the sad thing about it, man. That's why I lost a lot of respect for Kevin Feige. To me, he didn't even try. I just look at him and what he did. I'm like, dude, you just hook, line, and sinker, dude. You want to be accepted by Hollywood. You wanted to, because again, you guys were the outcast, right? And that was good that you're the outcast. That's what allowed you guys to create the things that you did. But then when you wanted to be accepted, man, you became weak and you became a shell, and you ruined your entire you. And Disney too, dude. Disney went along for the ride. They did it with Star Wars, dude. Hired the wrong people, right? It is what it is, dude. I don't care, right? And so again, that's what I mean. The title's a bit facetious when it comes to what I wrote in the title because there's no Marvel versus DC. I would love to go back to those times, but this is nothing. It's not even anything, to be honest. All right, Sony to Xbox. So that'll be the last topic of the day, guys. Um, Sony to Xbox. Do I care? Not really. Again, some of these titles I made and some of the topics was if the guys stopped in and we could talk about it and they could expand on it a little bit more. But if I'm being honestly for myself, and you guys should know this if you're on my channel and you watch my videos, dude, I tell you guys all the time, I don't care. I don't like that Xbox is putting their stuff on PlayStation. You guys should know that already if you listen to my channel. But they're gonna do what they're gonna do, fine. Um, so why would I care if PlayStation brings their stuff here? If I wanted to play PlayStation or Nintendo games, I just go buy their console. That's the type of gamer I am. I know that's an old school mentality, right? And that's something that I guess these guys are getting away from. Fine. You guys do what you guys want to do. You corporations do what you're gonna do. I want to do what I'm gonna do as a consumer. And never the twain shall meet. You guys do what you do. I'll do what I do. And that includes how I spend my money, where I spend my money, on what I spend my money on, right? Because all of this stuff to me that they're doing, dude, doesn't negate the fact that the economy needs to get better before they see any type of um, benefits from the whole thing. Like in the case of Xbox, I'll speak on Xbox because I don't really care about Sony. But I'll speak on Xbox, like their whole thing with the ecosystem, right? I just think it's a bad time right now for what they're trying to do with their ecosystem and their roadmap because the economy is just bad. So you can throw 100 million stuff at the wall, people won't be able to buy it. I don't know how else to say that. And you guys know I've been 100% on this on my channel. Not saying I'm 100% right. I'm just saying that's been my message on this channel for since last year when all this stuff was kicking out. Again, the industry of video games is a disposable income industry. Right? It relies on a lot of people that has disposable income. But when you're looking at things that are necessities, case in point, getting tires because I got to get to work, because I got to go grocery shopping, I got to do that. That becomes priority for me, and not the summer sale that's going on right now. You see what I'm saying? So you can put all the games in the world you want in Game Pass. You can put all the ID at Xbox games you want in Game Pass. You can, in fact, I've never known a time where you have so many games available at your fingertips. Right? Either by subscription or you pay for it. There's a summer sale going on right now with a bunch of games on sale. But when my focus is getting my car up and running, that takes precedent over anything. Right? Like next week is all my bills come in, so that's going to be the next precedent. Right? So I could go a couple weeks without even paying for an Xbox game. You guys feel me? Now I feel bad because I just found out Killing Floor 3 came out. I knew it was coming out, but I know the drop date was this week, so I might go drop $39 on that because it's one of my favorite games. So I'm never far away. You know, when I talk like this, dude, I'm a gamer at the end of the day, right? So that's how I participate in all of this kind of stuff, right? But the reality is, with whether you're Microsoft with your Xbox or Sony with your PlayStation or Nintendo with your Nintendo, right? The reality is people broke. People's broke, dude. People's broke. So do with it as you will, man. That's why I think it's unfortunate that I think Xbox has the perfect plan for gaming going forward. Again, all the haters out there talking about the digital stuff, dude. You can buy physical if you want to, or you can buy your games if you want to, dude. But technically, you're paying for games when you have a subscription, right? Because what do you think they do with all that money they make on Game Pass? And they make a lot of money on it. I'm sure they want to make more. Again, I said out on my channel, I think they had milestones, and they definitely didn't hit those milestones, right? And then you have a bad economy right now, and this is where you have all these guys coming in, and this is when the money people come in, and that's what causes them to do the things that they're doing. And some of that stuff is internal too, guys. It's not just about the money, man. I mean, you guys know that when Phil Spencer shut down, I forgot the name of that game that Platinum was doing. You know, Phil has shown that he can shut stuff down before, man, and he's a nice guy and everything like that. But again, some of this stuff is not just about the money. Some of it is just like, okay, we had this many years, it's not working out, so let's move on to something else. Where I would be worried as an Xbox guy if they go to like the actual core of what their game plan is, right? I mean, I give people like that's why I'm able to stay on Xbox, dude. I give them a wide berth if I'm being honest with some of the stuff that they do, right? Because I see what they're trying to do, right? When they start canceling like a bunch of stuff and shifting over, you'll know, dude. When it's time to panic, you'll know. For most Xbox guys, this is kind of just case in point. Now, if you're waiting for this game, or like me, I think the initiative. I didn't have a problem with all the stuff that was going on in the initiative because that's why they were created. And from my understanding, that's why they're created, right? Because at some point in time, what Xbox is trying to do, they're trying not to lose the creative aspect of the gaming culture, and I support them 100% with that. Right, this is why they do so much ID at Xbox stuff. This is why you have a lot of the games you have, like Humble Games, right? Or then like what's that bike game that just dropped, dude, from Annapurna. Right, a lot of those games wouldn't exist in the current in the market. That would be just if just Sony had this, dude. A lot of these games, Sony betrayed their indie stuff long time ago, decades ago, right? And so if Sony only existed with the PlayStation, you wouldn't be getting these games. Now I think you still have them on the PC side. I will say that. But again, you guys know I don't play PC, so I'd be out of luck. So for Xbox, I don't know, dude. I don't care. I don't care that they're bringing their stuff over here. I know everybody's hyped about, not everybody, but I know there's people hyped about Helldivers. We'll see how it does. I mean, the fact, and one of the reasons Sony's doing this is because of the success of Forza Horizon 5. I think it's sad, personally, if I'm being honest, that you have such flagship titles that these guys talk about so much, that wins awards and gets all these praise, kind of like Marvel movies. Marvel movies are like the de facto de facto stuff, dude. And then if you listen to the people out there, all the influencers and the media and stuff like that. When Marvel launches a movie, dude, and Marvel has problems, dude. Their cinematic universe sucks, right? But all these guys over there kissing their ass, right? And then the general audience goes, they look at the review, oh, it's 80%, 89%, 92%. Then they go watch the movie. It's like, oh, it's absolute trash. It was boring. What was it? You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel right now with all this stuff right now in the gaming space, dude. I'm just like, there's yeah, it's dude. If you guys, it just blows my mind that a lot of the ponies out there, that's their claim to fame, right? There's all these accolades that they get, and the number one selling game on their console this year is Forza Horizon 5, right? I think that's sad, and that's probably not the ponies buying it. It's just the general audience over there that plays Madden and plays COD on their console. I don't know, dude. I think that's sad, if I'm being honest. Right? Like if God of War came over here and sold more than Halo, right? That would be something that Xbox guys would have to acknowledge. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't, but and again, I just don't. Again, this was a topic of discussion for a group, Sony to Xbox. I don't care. I, I don't see myself buying any Sony game. If I wanted to buy a Sony game, I'd play it on a PlayStation. I would just buy a PlayStation and buy the games. Right? I don't need them to bring their stuff over. Me personally, now there's guys out there that are excited about it. Good for you. Will it help Xbox? I don't know, or whatever they're trying to do. I know it's definitely changing the gaming hemisphere, right? Right. The gaming industry is in flux right now because of all this stuff. And again, it shows the power of Xbox, right? Because they have that money. And if they want to go a certain route, even if the fans like myself agree with them or not, doesn't matter, dude. They're gonna go that route. Right? And things change. This is why I say, man, they're the big dog. They're the big man on campus, dude. It's Xbox because they have Microsoft. Dude, that's and for good and bad. Right? Most part, the stuff they do, I love, man. A couple things they've done lately, I don't agree with. I don't like. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're just gonna go down this road, and everybody else is just gonna follow. Case in point, all the stuff happening with Sony, which is weird to me because like, where does that put us in the future? Like, I know Xbox is has and even in the sense of Sony, right? I guess people buy their console, right? I think like 50 million. I don't even know if that number's true. Anyway, it's hard to talk about it because I don't trust their numbers. Because Sony lies. If you guys didn't know, this guy Sony lies. They call it business stuff, right? That's how they justify it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see about the future, man. Because I'm old school and I get that, dude. I know I'm an old war horse when it comes to this console war stuff. And guys like me are going the way of the dinosaur, and which is might be good for the industry. I don't know, but I look at this and I'm like, what's the point of having a console if you don't have exclusives? Right? If anybody in the chat, well, if anybody was in the chat, dude, you guys can let me know. But I don't know. The future seems the sands are shifting, and I don't know where the foundation is when it comes to this stuff. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, like, I'm just thinking out loud. Because I know they gotta have consoles because they have a console base. And again, one of the things I talk about is when Microsoft took them forever to just transition live, right? Because they didn't want to lose those people. And that kind of gives me hope for what Xbox is doing, right? Because if you have all these people on Game Pass, um, that's money that they make, which is good because they don't share the numbers. You have to extrapolate all this information, stuff like that. And if you guys disagree with me, let me know. But as far as the Sony Xbox thing, I 100% don't. I don't care if Sony games are coming to Xbox, except something to talk about, and I guess the shifting narratives and stuff like that. But am I going to be Horizon Zero Dawn? And one of the things too, dude, it's just not hate for the games. Is on Xbox, dude, we have so many games already. I just played that one weird game that just came out on Game Pass. The one where you go to that facility. I can't. Eratoli something. Don't know the name of it. Hold on. Let me be good and look it up. I feel bad there. Will I be able? Let me see if I can. July 2025. Let's see. Try and look this up for you guys. No, they have Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang, Real World was the other one. Real World was the one. And I believe it's Santa Pura that does that, so I definitely gonna check that out. And it looked interesting when I first saw it. Abiotic Factor, that's the one. Abiotic Factor. I was playing that. And at first I thought it was like, you look at the graphics, of course, not everything is about the graphics, right? But it's definitely throwback, right? And then the movement, I had to adjust that because you could tell it was made on a PC for PC gamers, and they bring it over here and they don't adjust it for controller, so you have to do it yourself in the settings, which irritates me. And then I was playing it, I was kind of getting into it till I got to this one part where I got to connect this heater, right? And I need to connect the heater in order to progress in the game. And I was trying to connect the heater, and it would not connect, and it was ticking me off because I'm like, here we go, another game. And I was talking to my daughter about that. I was letting her know, I was like, man, I was getting into this game. I came to this one part and I couldn't connect the heater, right? And if you look at what you're supposed to do, I was trying to do it, it just wouldn't work. And then she was telling me she was playing this other game, Little Nightmares 2, and there came a part where she needed this puzzle piece or something like that, and it would not work. Yeah, so quality control, guys. Quality control. That's all I'm going to say. Um, Hold on, let me share this. This is pretty cool. Oh, man, this is Windows Central too. I mean, I just that one guy in Windows Central, I like the Just Golden sucks. Um, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. I just downloaded that. Again, that's the other issue I have with my Xbox. Right, I've been playing it on the cloud, and then I was playing one game on the cloud, and I had to download it because it wasn't working well. But for the most part, they've gotten great with the cloud. But I think that needs to be the standard because they don't have the issue with the drive space. I have to kind of jump through a couple hoops to do it. I'll do it because I'm an Xbox guy. But that's something they need to work on because the general population, if you're offering a service that's supposed to be like Netflix, lowest common denominator, Microsoft, come on, get with the program. You need to. I understand it's expensive. You got to find a way improve the cloud services because some games you can't play on cloud. I'm just being honest. At least I can. If it works out for you, fine. But that has to be the standard across the board for everybody or the majority. And I know it's not. Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. So I downloaded that. That took forever. Which is fine. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. Would love to try this. I never played these two games. Will I have the time? I don't know. Little Nightmares 2, which my daughter's playing. She said it's pretty awesome. She liked the first one, except for the fact she got stuck, and she'll probably be upset if she has to start over. And I don't blame her for if that's the case because the game is broken. Quality control, and then a bunch of other Descenders 2. I bought Descenders when I first tried it. I bought it, and I never even went and played it. So I'll probably play that before I even try this. What else we got? Yeah, pretty good month though, dude. They have a bunch of games. I'm still playing Sandland, intermixing with Towerborn, jump back into COD. Probably will do Wu Chang. Maybe today I'll try it. I don't know. Definitely next week though. What do we got? Descenders next, dude. I fell off of that, dude. I should get back into it. But again, that's the problem, right? Again, this we have games. Next week is Grounded too. That's a huge game. Oh, they even did Farming Simulators in August. So the case, this is my point, guys. This is my point. This is why I always tell you guys it's for disposable income, right? Where they want people to buy these games, right? Because a lot of people will do that, but because money's so tight. And then again, we're looking at time. This is why there's another reason I don't care if Sony brings their stuff over here or not. I just did a rant video last week or like a couple of days ago where I talked about that. It's like, dude, I don't care, right? I have a hard time enough keeping up with the Xbox stuff. If you're not going to bring a game here and then at launch and then you bring it here later on, I don't care, dude. You go to the back of the line to me, man, and rightfully so, dude, because there's other stuff that I need to play. I haven't even touched on the fact I have a ridiculous backlog of games and a ridiculous library of games that I still need to play. That's why I'm playing Soundland right now. I had that for what I think it came out like a year or two ago, and I bought it. I believe I bought the physical, and then I went ahead. It was on then the digital was on sale, and I ended up buying the digital and I've been playing it. Right. So what is this? The following events as well as upcoming Xbox game studios have been added to the section. Xbox Game Showcase in June, did that one. ID at Xbox Annual Developer Session. Oh, what is this? Oh, okay. Why are you guys going backwards? What about? I know they're going to be at Gamescom, right? Anyway, my point. Let me stop sharing this. My point is though we're not starving, right? We don't. As Second Man always said, we eating good over there. And that's the honest truth. We're not hurting for games. We're not. That's the reality of it. But I'll share this last thing. We'll discuss a little bit more. Then I gotta bounce. Oh, that's not the one. Let's close that. Where am I? Come on, dude. There's only one. Yes. Okay, here we go, guys. And I'll blow this one up for you. Um, but this is interesting, dude, because Sony is reportedly working on bringing PlayStation games to Xbox. Sony is looking to bring its iconic PlayStation game to other platforms like Xbox, Steam, Nintendo Switch, and even mobile. It's funny. This is the only time you'll see Xbox in the front. Normally, when they list all the other consoles or areas or devices that you can play your games on, Xbox is always back here, right? But notice how Xbox is in the front now because it's a Sony thing. Dude, you don't hate the gaming media enough, dude. Gaming media is absolute trash. That's why I can't stand them. It's the little things like this that irritate me. And it basically shows you, like, that's why I can say that all these dudes grew up on PlayStation. A recent job posting, and this is what I heard because of the job posting. Dude. Nothing's official, right? I've never heard anything official yet. There's people reading into it, like pulling out extrapolating the evidence. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying that's the only thing I've heard. Sony wants someone to lead the charge in making these games more widely available, aiming to reach more players and boost revenue as competition ramps up. And then also you guys got to think about what priority are they going to put on Xbox. Definitely PC because they're already doing that with PC, right, with their games, which made them a third-party developer, which all these ponies won't acknowledge. That's fine because we all know that they're full of crap anyway. But like, when is Xbox going to get the games? Are we going to get it day one? How good are the games going to be? Are we going to get a good translation, or translation? Is this only going to be for people to get a taste of it to bring them back over, right? And they're not going to put every single game on there. Like, what is that? You would assume that since they're doing this, right, that they would actually go full tilt. But they're looking for people to put. Like, is that team for Xbox specifically for Xbox, right? That would mean that probably they put all the games over there, most of them. Sony's shift in strategy. This move follows Microsoft's decision to share Xbox exclusively with PlayStation, which proved that going multi-platform can grow audiences and sales. For gamers, it means you might not need a PlayStation console just to play your favorite title. Sony's opening the doors for everyone. Okay. Well, obviously, Microsoft leads, Sony follows. What the new director will do. The new senior director will work closely with Sony's commercial team and partners from rival platforms. Their job to make sure these games. Okay, well that answers my question, right? To make sure these games launches are successful everywhere while balancing what makes PlayStation special with wider access for players. We'll see. But that answers the question. So, taking it at face value, I guess, right? I guess that's the that's what they're doing. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. Um, like, if you're on my friends list on Xbox, dude, the if you're on my friends list on Xbox and you see the games that I play, you trust me, you're not gonna see God of War. If they bring God of War over, that's one game you'll never see in my library. So, and there's people like, oh, why are you being a hater and stuff like that, dude? You guys hate it first. You guys hate it first. That's real talk right there, dude. Because if you guys are true gamers, man, you guys would have had Xbox. You had Xbox bent over backwards for this industry. And like I said in my previous video, dude, at the chagrin of some guys like me who support Xbox, right? They went the extra effort for all of you guys outside the Xbox ecosystem, dude, and you responded with middle fingers to them, right? And they still tried, and he's still trying to this day, you know, right? So, maybe I would have done that if you guys would have been magnanimous, right, and meet us halfway, but not you guys, not the ponies, man. You guys are a bunch of pricks, and that'll never change. It'll only change when you guys are gone. That's why I hope for the ruination of your console and your company. Dude, we don't need anything from Sony anymore. Well, I'll take that back. The animation's been kind of killing it lately, and been the one bright spot for me and my kids who appreciate animation, aside from anime itself. But yeah, even with that being said, dude, I can just watch anime. Well, Sony does own Crunchyroll, so that's a bit of a Well, maybe if they just go to Sony Entertainment, right, and just get out of the console market, that would make me happy. Look, dude, there is no bridges here. If you come into this channel, expect one day for me to be kumbaya and I'm gonna reach across the aisle to these dudes. I never will. So if you guys are like feel like that, then fine, that's you, not me. And this is probably not the channel for you. I'm never gonna do that. Dude, I got people telling me to go get Helldivers, right? These are people that I play with, like games like Vermintide, right? Because I haven't played that game in a while. Um, and then Killing Floor 2, there's three that's out. So, yeah, and that's the funny thing about it, right? I have games that I don't even touch right now that I could be playing before all these other games even come over. So Helldivers 2, it could be a great game, right? You got a lot of people on the PC side wanting the Xbox guys to jump on, right? And also on the PlayStation side, because, PlayStation has a lot of normies over there. And I'm hoping that this will revitalize. And I hear that they've made some changes. I mean, what I heard was with Helldivers, right? They nerfed some stuff, like these companies do for whatever reason, right? But they overcalculate a lot of times, and then it pisses off their fan base that's already there, right? And that's something that these companies need to work on. I mean, you're the creative side of the thing, or you're the ones controlling the property and stuff like that. But sometimes, man, you just got to be hands off and let people do what they want to do until it becomes a big issue, man. Sometimes you guys are just too hands on, man. You just want to fix it, right? When there's no problems, man. Like, if to you might be a problem, but to your base it's not, dude. And so, because I see that with Overwatch all the time, just pissing people off. COD, well, COD is in its own. Dude, there's people complaining about all kind of stuff, not just the fixing of things or nerfing of stuff, dude. Just about everything. Like, people are talking about the skins now. It's crazy. Yeah, let's leave COD out of that conversation. But I seen it with Overwatch, man, because my daughter plays that constantly, dude. And it's like the changes they make sometimes is just mind boggling. So I think so. I don't know how Helldivers 2 is going to do on Xbox. The problem that I know for a fact is, and this is 100%, and I know a lot of the Bleed Green guys will back me up on this, dude, is that we have a lot of content to play, right? And being the type of gamers, at least the hardcore fans on the Xbox, like myself, the way that we consume and play our games, man, we like variety, right? So it doesn't have to be a AAA banger. That's why I never bought into that narrative. I could care less, right? If it's a great game, I'll play it, right? But sometimes a lot of the stuff that I play, and you guys should know this about me because you listen to the stuff I talk about with pop culture, dude, I don't follow a lot of the norms. Some of my favorite things were never considered popular, right? In fact, most of the movies now that are popular, dude, they were failures back in the day when I watched them. But I loved them, and I didn't care what everybody else thought about them. I liked it. That's all that mattered to me, right? Like I think one of the best movies of all time is Better Off Dead, and it had some type of success, but not huge success, right? And it's become a cult classic, man. People are discussing it to this day, right? Because it's given when it came out, right? It had that market of people, but over time, people have watched it, and it had like decades, right, to grow this fan base and following. But you got to be careful with that, man, because a lot of people just assume that's what people want. Like Happy Gilmore 2. I want to check it out. Love the first Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore 2, man. A lot of people are like, it's okay. So we'll see. I'll make that judgment for myself. I'm just using that as an example, right? Like for me personally, a lot of the stuff that people like, I don't gravitate towards, right? A lot of stuff that I play, a lot of people don't play. Like the game Soundland, dude. It's a good open world game, right? But it has a lot of different elements to it, and the things that the game does why I like the game. Some people might not like, right? There's kind of a shooter aspect because a lot of times you're driving in vehicles and you're fighting enemies from the vehicle, so that's almost like a shooter. Then you have RPG elements. There's some stuff about the game I wish was different that I don't really care for. I'm not don't really care for, but I wish they would have just it'd be great if you could do this, like that kind of thing, right? Like I find myself because of the way the game is going out and just constantly battling. And for somebody like me, that's fine because all I do is explore. I like that aspect, and then if I come across a group of people, I just take them out and then I collect stuff. So you got to level up yourself. You're leveling up the enemies because that's how you get the better quality materials, which you need to advance your stuff. Luckily for me, I fall in that wheelhouse, but I can tell. Look, dude, a lot of people won't take the time to do that. Right? So that and these guys make the games that they want to make. Man. So that's why sometimes when I listen to these dudes when they create the game, just because you like it and it's what you like, dude, it depends on what the gamer wants and the time that they're willing to put in. That's what's so unique about Avowed. Avowed is not your standard RPG game, dude, and it shows. Man. Anybody that's played RPGs for a long time, and that's one of the things that came out that people didn't realize about it. It's everything for leveling up is attached to your gear, And since you can't go and repeat stuff, dude, you have to be careful with the resources that you have. Right? That's why a lot of people like myself ended up playing it twice through. We're playing it 2 times, right? Because it took me the first. Now I didn't have the same problem other people did. Some people on the first, they were past halfway through the game. They reset their game because they got kind of stuck, right? Because they were doing it wrong, right? And that's a unique thing to Avowed, and something like a creative decision that those people made, right? Whether you liked it or not, I don't think it was bad. It's just like it's not everybody's cup of tea. And then that type of game, are you willing to put the time and energy into it? And that's one of the issues with a lot of these games now, right? Is that a you have a base out there that you're trying to appeal to, where a game like that might not be successful because it's just way too time consuming. You actually have to do resource stuff and think about the things you do, right? And they did have a really pretty good. I mean, I like the story, I like the world building and stuff like that, but I think they could have, if they ever do a second one, dude, they could really improve on that a lot. It was good for what it was, but when you're trying to draw people in, you need that balance. So if you're gonna build your game that way, as far as the gameplay mechanics, the selling point for it, which it was a pretty good selling point, I'm not gonna lie, from the stories and the characters and stuff like that. But they definitely can do some work on that. But those kind of games are not gonna get. I don't know. I doubt they'll have a sequel to that. I don't see them doing it, especially with Microsoft and the couple games that they just canceled. Avowed definitely falls into that limelight. And that's why they're putting so much now on the Outer Worlds 2. Because to me, the Outer World 2 has some of that Avowed thing, but it appeals more to a general audience. And that's the sad thing, dude. I hate to see Avowed change. I just think there's some problems that they have with the game that they could fix, and then hopefully they can build on that. But I don't see that happening. Because I did like Avowed. I told you guys I gave it like a 8 out of 10. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I'll go with 8 out of 10 because I did enjoy it. I spent a lot of time on it. And I normally won't do that for a game that I don't like. All right. Anyway, guys, I want to wrap it up. Thank you guys for being here. I know this is, again, sorry about the podcast and the way that it was. If the guys wanted to do another one, we can do one. This is me just kind of ranting on and stuff like that. But yeah, dude, shout out, man. Rest in peace to my brother in Christ, Hulk Hogan. Glad he became saved. Glad he did his testimony, dude. And now, like, this is one of the times. There's a lot of times where people will post up. Yeah, they're going. We'll see them on the other side. If you're a Christian, that's not how it works, right? But in this case, I'm glad to say that this is one of those cases where I can't say it. So see you in the future, Hulkster, man. It'll be a good time. All right. So Xbox All In channel. Hey, shout out to Mr. Kima, brother. Thanks for being here. And I know other people popped in and out. Again, Sunday morning, doing on and off time. But thanks, Mr. Kima, man. Thanks for sharing the memories, dude. Roddy Piper didn't even touch on that, and especially the rock and wrestling. I kind of glossed over it, but it was a huge time. It was a very entertaining time of my childhood as well. Dude. I loved all of that, dude. Ate it up. In fact, I think Cindy Lauper video, right? Captain Lou was in there. Girls Just Want to Have Fun. He was in there. They made a whole thing with that, dude. And with the MTV generation, all that kind of stuff, dude. It was a perfect storm. That's why it blew up like that. Anyway, shout out to the chat, bro. Thanks, Mr. Kimo. And Xbox On channel, hosted forever. We out.